Hello and welcome back to another video in which we're going to be looking at how we can deal with errors that come about from whether it's a formula we're entering or if we're just trying to deal with errors that already exist in other cells. And what we're going to be looking at, or the function we're going to be looking at in particular, is if error. And so as it says, it's if error, so what you want the function to do if an error is present. So let's take a look at that formula. If you haven't done already, now's a great time to subscribe to the channel. Make sure you hit that notification bell as well to make sure you don't miss any of these future videos going forwards. If you have already, thank you very much. The last thing we'll just ask is if you can make sure you give this video a great big thumbs up. Thank you. Cool, so going into the formula, we have two different parts to the if error function. So the purpose of the function is to trap and deal with errors. The if error function is made up of two parts. Number one is the value, and this is the value reference or formula to check for an error. And number two is value if error. So this is the value to return if an error is found. So in essence, point number one, if we're going to be doing nesting another function into this formula, then the value part is where we'll be putting our formula, or the value part could just be a reference to another cell. And then the number two is then to say, okay, if the result from value, or if value does contain an error, what do you want us to do? Do you want us to do another formula? Do you want us to just enter or return some static text? And that's the fundamental basics of how to use the if error formula, really. And then what we have at the bottom there is if error in its entirety as how the formula will look, or will come up as per the prompt that we'll be using when we go through Excel. So as always, a lot easier to always explain and step through the function with some actual examples. So we'll jump over to Excel now and work through a couple of those just so you can see how to use this function. Okay, so we're now into Excel and we're going to go through this quick example in our table here to show how if error can be used. So in our table we have some information around the total sales per day and the number of customers. And what we want to do is populate this in column E for average sale per customer. So to do that, we're going to do a very simple piece of math. Was literally going to just be the total sales in column C divided by the number of customers. And then, as you can see, it's then got this by day. So this is just a report a shop or someone might be doing just to understand what the average sale per customer is. So what we'll do is in the yellow, we'll enter a standard formula or a basic formula just to do the division calculation, and then we'll step into adding the if error once we've identified why it's going to be useful in this scenario. So what we do is do a simple equal sign. We take our total sales, and we're using the table here, so that's why you've got total sales selected. But what we'll do is we'll just go and then type in there C2, not C2, C5, and divide that by the value what's going to be in D5, and hit enter. And because we're using the table, all this information is going to automatically populate for everything in that table. We did mention it in our previous video, I believe. We will be doing a video dedicated to using tables. As we appreciate, we've started, or tables have started to creep into our videos, but we actually haven't done any videos to address how to best use tables, and how even to get tables into your workbook. So not to worry, hopefully this will still be fine for the purpose of this video, but those videos on tables will be coming soon, so don't worry. So having entered our simple calculation in here, for total sales in column C divided by the customers in D6, you can see that for the majority of our rows in our table, we have got values. So we can see for this Monday, the average sale per customer was 38.87. But for Wednesday and Saturday, because we haven't got a number of customers in here, we've got a divide error, and the divide error has come about because there's no value in here to divide by, hence giving the error. What for one is not very tidy, and also it's not going to help us when we're trying to do any sort of other analysis, such as trying to get total information here. So when I highlight all these cells, you can see it's given us a count, but it hasn't given us the sum or the sum of the total because we've got those errors in there. So how can we deal with that? So enters if error. We've got the if error formula at the top here in row 2, so we can reference it and see how it's worked or what we need to do. So the calculation we put in here is C5D divided by D5. This calculation here is what's going to form the value part of the if error statement. And then the value if error is then what we want the formula to, or the function to do or to return in the event that an error occurs, i.e. lines 7 and 10. So let's get ahead and enter that, the if error function. So all we need to do is at the beginning of our formula we can just update the information we already got rather than retyping stuff in. So because I just now obviously selected just after the equal sign, so what we need to do is type, and what we'll do is we'll just get rid of the calculation so we start from fresh, just so we're completely clear. So to do this with the if error, we do equal sign and then we type if error and then open our brackets, and you can see from our prompt we've got the value and the value if error matching our little prompt at the top here in line 2. So this time we're going to enter our formula of C5 divided by D5 into here, into that value part. We'll hit our comma to then move on to the part of what to do if there's an error as a result of this calculation. So what we want to do here, we'll simply put 0. So if there's an error, we just want to give the value or the number 0. What's then going to allow us to do any calculations or sums that we want to do. So now we enter that, we can now see that the two values that previously had the error is now going to give us 0. What is great. It's now not caused those horrible errors. It also means if we now want to do sums of this, it's now going to work perfectly fine. As we can see, sum down here. I've got the sum of 208,119. So that's going to allow us to work better. But that's just one way to deal with this. And this is probably the most advisable way we would have for this when dealing with the scenario if there's a calculation, is just to return that 0 value, because it's then not going to hinder anything else you might want to do or any other functions or formulas you have utilising the column that this value is going to be in. Another option that you could do, just for example's sake, is say you didn't want to put a 0 in here. What you can do is if you can enter text. So the reason for the error coming about is because we've got no value in column D. So all we could do in here is we could enter some quotations and go, please enter customer number. We know obviously we need a value in customer number. Well, actually, let me just push enter. So what you can see now is, in short, is now rather than the 0 value, when there is an error, we can now return text rather than just that 0. This is just giving an example that you can use text rather than a number. Obviously, one thing to be careful with is just to make sure that obviously this is kind of jumping the gun a bit because it could be either the total sales or the customers that are given this error. So you might want to just do a bit more validation before you just jump to assumption of what part is causing the error. But that's just a real basic example to show you can return text alternatives if you want to. But back to the example we started with, the best way you can use if error in this example is have your calculation, and then in your value if error you can enter the 0, and then that will give you that result. Okay, I hope you found that useful. If you've got any questions or any other uses you've recently used if error for, do let us know in the comments below this video. As always, links to our Facebook page and website are in the description to this video, and you will also now find there links to download the files that we're using in these tutorials. So we hope you find them useful as well. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.